G'day, hi and welcome. Kind of chilly one this morning. My heat on. There we go. Warm my fingers up. Doing fencing today. So, he was 94 or 96 years old. An old man. He was in the church yesterday. We had our annual church meeting, right? And they always have it in the long weekend in August. And I was talking to him, I was talking to his son who was in his 70s. I was the youngest guy in there, and 51, so I'm like the baby in there. And my aunts, uncles, my dad was there. A lot of people from the town I know. It wasn't that many people, probably about 30 people or whatever. The church is, it was built in 1869, and it reopened again in 1991 after renovations. And the old guy, he used to go to this church when he was a kid. And he was telling, he used to live in this area. Now he lives they live way, pretty far. And he, for 94 years old, if I'm in that condition when I'm, he was sharp as a tack. Oh, he remembered, he asked him something, he remembered, yeah, when I was 5, this was here and that was there. And, when I was 12, this was, that kind of stuff, right? So, it's the amount of history a man would have living almost 100 years, and he was telling me, well, his son told me first, and I asked him about it. I said, I heard you did a wipeout in the church, because there was long time ago, there was only a box stove in there to heat the church, right? And I mean, our church is never open in the winter like that, because it's not that many people go to the church, and it's a Protestant church, so people don't really go to church. It's one of, not to get into any bad blood or whatever, but one of the things between the Protestants and the Catholics is the Protestants are kind of boycotting the Catholics because of the Vatican, they get all these donations and stuff like that. They don't give it out to the people, right? They keep it for the Vatican. They give some out, but there's that whole thing. So in retaliation, it's the Protestants, they don't go to church. They just worship a different way. They did go to church on Sundays, but they kept it a lot more simple. And so there's that thing, right? And I don't want to get too much into it because I'm a Catholic. No, those Protestants are bad. Those black mouth Irish, yeah, those Orangemen. We had both in my town. We had Protestants and Catholics, right? So, but everybody got along. It was just this denomination. It wasn't like Northern Ireland. You know what I mean? That sun is right in my face. I don't like that. But anyway, yeah. So his son told me the story. Then I asked him about it, and he said what had happened was he was late for church. And he came in the door, and the way the church is, the floor is not level. I mean, these old places, they weren't built straight, proper, the first time around, right? So the floor had a bit of a little bit of a slope to it. It still does to this day. And he says there was ice all along the base of the floor because it's just a hardwood floor, right? And he walked in there and he slipped right up and he hit the stove. So he's lit a good 25 feet or whatever there. And he says all he remembers is his uncle laughing at him. I guess, that would have been embarrassing. He said he was 20 years old. He remembered it. So 74 years ago, he wiped out in the church. And everybody got a good laugh at him. So, but it was neat. He goes, before he leaves, and I thought this was touching, he goes, I'd like to say, I hope I see you next year, but who knows? I said, well, I hope I see you next year. Yeah, nice old guy. A different type of people, you know what I mean? I curse, you know, as much, you know, like I'm sure, you know, when they're, you know, by, you know, around really comfortable people, but when they're out in public society, they're polite, you know, stuff like that. And, you know, the stories in the history you can learn from a generation like that, like if you start talking to an old person like that, they talk about the nuances that, you know, like you just don't even know about. You know, like, oh, well, at this time everybody was doing this, or they used this, or they went here, or they went there, or this was the big sayings of the day. You know what I mean? Like, I think about myself when I was like 20. The thing, like the words that, the language that we were, of course we sounded stupid, but, you know, I'm sure everybody at 20 sounds stupid. You know, like all these, you know, like, you know, we used to go around saying word all the time. Hey, isn't that cool? Yeah, word. You know, like, why was that even a thing? You know what I mean? You know, like there was stuff behind it, but it was just like, if you said that to somebody now, they wouldn't understand what it was about. You know what I mean? They'd have no clue. And so that's, you know, like, so when you talk to the older people like that, you get those interesting stories. And you know, like talking to people like, oh, well, when I was a kid, this was here, that was there. You know, there wasn't as many people, obviously, but you know, I asked them. I said, what I was interested in is like, because I remember like how they used to, the area I'm just driving right now, they used to call the plains, except for that little spot on the left there, was always a tree plantation. And those trees when I was a kid were only maybe about 20 feet tall. Now they're like almost 100, you know, 80 to 100, some of those trees. And when I was a kid, it was called the plains for a reason, because it was so open. You know, now it's all grown in. And you know, my town was the same way. Like, I could see from my front deck, I could see most of the town. I could even see to the furthest church. And now you can't see, you know, down the driveway at all. And I asked him, I said, how was it? I said, was it like a lot more open area? Like, how much more open was it? He goes, oh, a lot. He goes, you could see like down the mountain, you know, where he was up in the mountain area there. And he says, oh yeah, you could see, you know, for miles, you know what I mean? And that's how much it's grown in. He goes, yeah, it's unbelievable how much it's grown in. Even out here, like, this was all open, you know. There used to be a train station went through and everything like that. And yeah, so it's like, it's interesting to see, you know, or to hear these stories, you know. And then you see old photos and the odd old photo and stuff like that. Because I remember back then, they weren't able to document everything. Like, most people, you know, of that age, if they were lucky, they had one baby photo, and maybe, you know, one of their prom and one of their wedding day. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't have that many photos. So it's like, you only can go on the memory of these people, and a lot of these people don't have, you know, their memories aren't as sharp. You know what I mean? So when you get somebody older like that, you know, in their 90s, and they still, you know, speak really well, and they're still sharp and everything like that, you know, take advantage of it, have a conversation with them. So anyway, yeah, that was my day yesterday. So yeah, I go to church once a year, guys. There you go. And it was really nice. We had our sandwiches. So my dad and I are gonna be eating sandwiches now for probably the next couple of days. Because they you know, like, everybody cooks up a storm and brings all the sandwiches and everything, and you get your sandwiches, and once you get your sandwiches, you're pretty good. I really better get my monies, go get my provisions. But anyway, yeah, there we go.